Hi, welcome to Pop Culture Maniacs podcast. This week, as usual, it's me, Kieran Freemantle, and Jean Henegan. And we are going to talk about the popular DCEU, well, popular in quotation marks. So, Jean, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine. I've started the third Wheel of Time book, so to try and enhance my fancy geek credentials.
Oh, fun.
Yes, yes, I'm about 90 pages in, enjoying it so far. So far so good. Get myself ready for the TV series when it comes out.
Excellent.
Yes. So yes, DCEU or DC Extended Universe or DCU or DC Universe. It's a clusterfuck, isn't it?
Oh my God, it is.
So obviously, I think we just before we started recording, we're saying we were catching up with the films, or some of them at least, because they're the time of recording. There has been a very big release. There's been a very big release, hasn't there?
Yes, the infamous Snyder Cut just dropped this past week.
Yeah. So yes, we will get to that for our second part, but we'll just talk about the DCU broadly because basically, obviously, DC, the other major comic book company, and obviously they've, since the success of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they've been playing catch up.
Yeah, they've been playing catch up, and they've been playing catch up in a very scattershot way.
Yeah, because obviously it started with Man of Steel, which arguably is one of the most divisive superhero films ever made, because some people love it, some people hate it. I'm personally in the camp that I actually quite like it, though I can perfectly understand why people don't.
Yeah, I'm somebody who's always been kind of ambivalent towards Superman as a hero. He's never been one of my favorites. I personally think he's a little too good. So I did enjoy kind of the edge of darkness with Superman in Man of Steel. But I have people I know who are vehemently opposed to it, can't stand the fact that Superman, killed people in it, and it was too dark. So I've heard all the complaints on the other side.
Yeah, I was thinking when I saw it in the cinema when obviously the ending where he breaks Zod's neck, I was thinking, oh, that's gonna piss off a lot of people.
Yeah. And then, the civilian body count, which of course drives the next couple films within the Justice League universe, that rubbed a lot of people the wrong way as well.
Yeah. I would say, because I fairly recently rewatched Man of Steel because I did a whole binge of the Superman films. I think some of the criticisms of Superman not saving people is a bit harsh because he does go around trying to save people in Smallville in the big battle there. It's and obviously when he's in Metropolis, he's fighting for his life. He's fighting against someone who's a much more experienced fighter, and he's obviously just gotten a grasp of his powers as well. So it was pretty much an impossible situation. He couldn't go around trying to save people and fight Zod at the same time. But then I think with a lot of superhero films afterwards, they do try and counteract that, like Aquaman, when the Sicily scene, they do make a point of Aquaman trying to save civilians whilst fighting for his life against Black Manta.
Yeah, and I'm personally of the opinion that it's more interesting in a superhero film when you give a superhero a nearly impossible decision to make, where they have to essentially deal with the trolley problem from philosophy of who do you save, how do you do it, what do you do? And that makes the drama more heightened in my mind. So I don't mind so much when, somebody like Superman has to fight the villain and try to save the most lives, even if it means some people die in the process. I'm okay with that.
Yeah. And obviously with Man of Steel, because obviously that was being made on the back of obviously the Christopher Nolan Dark Knight trilogy, because Christopher Nolan obviously produced it. David S. Goyer wrote the screenplay, obviously helped write all the previous Batman films. So, and obviously they were going for these sort of more realistic look.
Yeah, I mean, as someone who lives in Chicago and is from Chicago, I have a particular love of the visual uh, setting of Metropolis and eventually Gotham and all those films because Chicago is so prominently featured in them.
Yeah, admittedly, when I went to Chicago as a tourist, I went into the downtown area and I realized, wow, it's Gotham.
Yeah, I mean, Christopher Nolan, the fight or the car chase between Batman and Joker and Dark Knight was just the biggest love letter to how Chicago can really look beautifully on screen.
Yeah. And I would say with me, there were some issues with Man of Steel, obviously, besides from obviously the Zod thing. I think it's probably the least Zack Snyder looking film. He's still gone for that like shaky cam, not those zooms. His usual cinematographer wasn't working on it. It's another guy who did Amin something. He's Iranian American. He worked. He's obviously an experienced cinematographer. I don't blame him. He's probably just doing what he was told. But yeah, it had that sort of, I didn't like that sort of shaky cams, all those zooms they had. But that's more of an aesthetic thing.
Yeah, I agree. I'm never a fan of shaky cam in a film. It makes me motion sick when I see it.
Yeah, and I do. Obviously, I think there was quite. Obviously, Henry Cavill. He certainly looks the part, doesn't he?
Oh yeah, like he was built to be Superman physically.
Yeah. I'm sure you know the story of him going, like he auditioned to play Batman, Bond, and Superman. Obviously, didn't get any of those roles, but obviously got it later for obviously Superman.
Yeah, I mean his acting. We could talk about that, but yeah, he physically is Superman.
Yeah, I think because when we again with in the Josh Whedon version of Justice League, he did seem more like the Superman. I think people are more accustomed to sort of like the ultra good, sort of a much more happier being, isn't he? I think he did that quite well when in the brief glimpses in that version of Justice League.
Yeah, and Superman has a sense of humor in the comics. He's not, as stoic as some people seem to think he has to be.
Yeah. I do have to admit, I absolutely love the score for Man of Steel from Hans Zimmer and Junkie XL.
Oh yeah, I mean the scores across the board. It's always interesting musical choices. The place things sweep in. It just and like that was one thing I realized when I was watching the Snyder Cut again was everybody has their theme, and as soon as you hear it, you just know instantly. Oh, that's that person. That's that person, and it's so well calibrated.
Yeah, it's because obviously Wonder Woman has that sort of guitar riff, doesn't she? And that is, pretty damn awesome.
Yeah, and kind of like that Greek voice, and Flash has his, and Aquaman has his, and so everyone's got their moment, and the second you hear that song, you're like, oh, there it is.
Yeah, but it's. I think obviously, and I think that's something like DC have definitely done better than Marvel is the music, because except for like the Avengers, maybe Iron Man, most of the music just sort of sounds the same, really.
Yeah, and I mean that kind of goes into the one major knock I think on the MCU as a whole, which is, at times, the films feel cookie cutter and very corporately put together in a box. Like, here's the story, here's what it has to convey to get to point B to point C. So everything is very regimented. And so you don't get those little hints. For the most part, there are some films that are out of the box, but you don't get those hints of individuality that the DC films give you.
Yeah. Going back, because obviously with Man of Steel, when it after it was essentially a good starting point, but and as we said, DC went straight into rushing, trying to build their cinematic universe. So they went straight into Batman v Superman. And I mean, and that film had a lot more issues. I think for a start, I think Zack Snyder had a lot more free reign, which you never go full Snyder.
No.
Because I think with Man of Steel, he probably had Christopher Nolan was producer. I think he was able to rein him in a bit.
Yeah, but as soon as you can really see the difference between the two films, where Batman versus Superman just gets darker visually, colors. It feels it felt heavy to watch it.
Yeah, I was thinking, I remember at the time there was like a meme. It's like 4 comic book panels. And it goes Batman, Superman in the air. It goes darker, 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 darker. Oh no, perfect. Sorry, ruined that joke.
But yeah, it hit me remember in the Game of Thrones episode with the big battle where everyone got mad because it was so dark you couldn't see what was happening.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
I was watching all these. I'd caught up on a bunch of them this week because I skipped a bunch of them. I just kept watching, going, my God, they're all like that. It's all so dark.
No. And I was thinking as tonally as well as physically dark as well. Like Batman's a raging psychopath in that film.
Yeah. And the Christopher Nolan trilogy was, it was dark, but it's Batman. So you expect to have a little bit of darkness with it. He's not, the happiest of people. But my God, I was just who would follow Batman into anything?
Because he was branding criminals. So it was pretty much a death sentence because in the Ultimate Cut, they obviously saw someone get shivved in prison because of it. Obviously, I was thinking the big car chase in where Batman's following the kryptonite delivery. Is how many people did he kill in that chase?
Well, yeah, and my thing too is, one of my pet peeves in all of superhero movies is if they show us, Peter Parker's uncle dying, because God, we don't need to see that again. Or if they show us Batman's parents dying again, because I think everyone on the planet at this point knows what happened to Batman's parents.
Yeah.
And when you jump into a Batman story where they did with Batman versus Superman, and you skip, 20 years of him fighting crime in Gotham, the only impetus for his anger seems to be that his parents were killed when he was a kid. And that doesn't justify everything that he does in this film to me. I needed more understanding of why he's so insane.
I think that leads to the other issue with Batman v Superman. I think they're so built on world building and trying to set up other thing to expand the franchise. So clearly, they had showing the Robin's costume, it's obviously implied that the Joker killed Robin, wasn't it? And that's they had that obviously that detour into the post-apocalyptic future, which I think was a great action sequence, but was it really needed?
Yeah, and I mean, listen, I don't love Robin. Nobody really loves Robin, I don't think. But, if you're gonna put that in, you've got to ground it somewhere. You have to explain it better, and making it an epilogue in the Snyder Cut of Justice League that starts to dig down a little deeper into it. Still, no, I want to just show it to me. Show me what happened. Explain the story to me more. Give me more idea of who this guy is, and not just, Ben Affleck doing a weird voice.
We've also with Batman v Superman. There's also quite a lot of. I think he was trying. Zack Snyder was basically trying to do Watchmen again, showing the sort of, they had all the talking heads. You could even have Neil deGrasse Tyson didn't having a little cameo, sort of all talking about the paradigm shift of Superman. It reminded me of Watchmen a bit. It's in the graphic novel. I don't think it really came, but it didn't really, it's just people talking. They don't actually truly show it.
Yeah, and that's my number one pet peeve in all film and television is, if you violate the show don't tell rule,
Yeah,
if you're just telling me things for the sake of telling me exposition, you're not writing well, you're not creating the correct world.
yeah. I think there's always an exception to the rule, but yeah, not in that case. I think, could have sort of done more things like showing like what maybe what political changes there could have been, how obviously obviously there would have been people love Superman, probably people fear Superman because he is pretty much a power of a god, got the power of a god.
Yeah, and you could easily do that. I mean, the sequence at the opening where Batman, sees Wayne Industries like fall and all that. That was very powerful because you understood why he's so mad at Superman. And it brought in, elements of actual normal people. And then they just kind of forgot about a lot of the normal people, except for Scoot McNairy's character. Like it just kind of fell apart where you set up this idea of these were real people who were injured, maimed, killed by Superman. And then we're just gonna like focus on this one dude who's really angry about everything.
I know, because obviously that opening to Batman v Superman was absolutely terrific. I thought that's probably probably the best scene in the whole film.
Yeah, and it felt something. It invoked emotion. It got you into the mindset of what this movie wants to tell you. And for a lot of people who do see Superman as like this, the greatest superhero, it kind of forces you to think, hey, maybe he did do some things that might need a reckoning with. But it didn't take that through line throughout the whole movie. It turns into, Lex Luthor manipulating everybody, which it's Lex Luthor, sure, but still, really?
Yeah. And oh yeah, we got to talk about Jesse Eisenberg's with Lex Luthor because my God, that's one of the worst pieces of casting a major blockbuster in quite a while.
Yeah, my thing is like it's a thing I say to people about the show The Blacklist, where James Spader is clearly in a different TV show than everybody else, and his show is far more interesting. But it's the same thing with Jesse Eisenberg in this. He made a choice, so hey, good for him. He made a choice, but he was in a completely different movie than everybody else in that movie.
No, he's basically playing evil. Well, evil Mark Zuckerberg. Obviously, you could say Mark Zuckerberg's evil anyway, but yeah, he's just thinking of the Social Network again.
Oh yeah, like that was the only thing in my mind the entire time was one, what a bad wig, and two, yeah, he's basically evil Mark Zuckerberg.
And you're thinking, the whole point of Lex, well, obviously, I know Lex Luthor has had changes over the years in the comic books, but I think most people would associate him as now as manipulative industrialist, someone who's got his fingers in a lot of pies, someone. For a start, you would think he would be a bit older. He would be someone like in his 40s at least.
One of my friends told me that he's pretty sure that he's like Lex Luthor Jr. or Lex Luthor's son, or he's not the Lex Luthor we all think of. But initially the casting, they wanted Bryan Cranston for the part, which would have been really interesting to me because Bryan Cranston's such a versatile actor.
Yeah.
And he would have been much more age appropriate for, an older Batman.
Yeah, I think that's just a cop out if they're going out. Oh, this is Lex Luthor Jr. If they did go down that route, no. Plus, it sort of makes it sound very similar to Smallville because obviously you had young Lex Luthor was obviously actually friends with Superman in that TV show, and then you had the Lex Luthor's dad who's actually the company head, and obviously the slow evolution of how Lex Luthor became more like the villain we know.
And I feel like a running theme, well, I guess really through most superhero movies, is this feeling of, inadequacy of characters where they have to prove themselves either to the, who became before them in the role, or, their parents, or, it's this idea that they don't feel adequate. And that's, the whole genesis of Lex Luthor in this is, he doesn't feel like he's as good as his father was, and so he's going to make everyone see how great he is. And Superman spends Man of Steel feeling like he's not good enough to have his powers or be this person, and Batman really just doesn't feel like he's good enough to do anything, so he's just guilt-ridden and angry the whole time.
And that's sort of, that is the Snyder and the mindset, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's fine, but I don't know if we need like 6 movies about it.
Yeah. Admittedly, because when Snyder was announced the direct Man of Steel, I thought yes, because I actually was a bit of a fanboy of his, and I thought it'd be cool, stylish, and he would still inject that bit, that sense of fun. He obviously stylish, but yeah, they're not fun. Especially like if you watch the Batman v Superman, the Ultimate Cut. It's really violent for a mainstream superhero film.
Incredibly violent.
Yeah. Again, I was going back to my point again. Batman, like when he did the big warehouse fight, and you think again, how many people did he just kill in that fight?
Yeah, and I mean that's kind of the hallmark of what the DCEU, well, most of the DCEU really turned out to be, for good or for ill, was that it's if you want a more family friendly, PG-13 at max take on superheroes, go to the MCU. They'll give you that. They're not going to swear, they're not going to violently kill anybody. There's going to be gore and mayhem, but it's still good for your family. But if you want to see the real hardcore stuff, what really would happen if there were superheroes, the DCEU is going to show you everything.
Which seems a bit pointless, because obviously, well, I think this is probably a great way to describe Marvel and DC. DC have characters you look up to. Marvel have characters you can relate to. Involve anything, which should be the opposite way round.
Yeah, that is the perfect explanation for both of them. Like perfect.
Yeah, and obviously after Batman v Superman's negative reception, that's when I think things really went to hell for Warner Brothers and the DCEU, because they were having to course correct a lot. They obviously just Suicide Squad changed to be much more, to be basically Guardians of the Galaxy,
and it still didn't. It was that was a mess.
Yeah.
Like what killed me about that one is my main exposure to DC stories was through the CW TV shows, particularly The Flash and Arrow.
Yeah.
And Arrow did an incredible couple episode arc with a Suicide Squad that they put together. And it was so well done, and the characters were so interesting that I was so excited to see a bunch of them redone in Suicide Squad. And then I don't know how you can get something so right on a TV show and then screw it up so badly with hundreds of millions of dollars.
Again, I think there's another choice of a bad choice of director. Was David Ayer the type of director you think to do superhero films, in that most of his films tend to be gritty crime dramas?
Yeah.
I was going to say Justice League, we obviously know the story, like DC decided, right, we need to change this. They pretty much got rid of Zack Snyder. I know, like, it's obviously iffy, but I think some say that he left because obviously his daughter's death, or whether it was just used as an excuse by DC to get rid of him. Brought in Josh Whedon, and obviously he was mandated to try and trim it down to less than 2 hours, make it a lot more lighter. And I think now with a lot of the publicity, I think Josh Whedon's now being thrown under the bus. Obviously, you can talk about how much his behavior, but I think it's still a case they did just shove him. They're trying to make him the scapegoat for all of that version of Justice League's failures.
I mean, I think he, obviously became the scapegoat, but then once he became the scapegoat, everything started coming out from the closet there, and he turned into a, hopefully, from my opinion, and I was a huge Joss Whedon fan all my life. Like, I loved all his TV. I was a huge fan. I hope he never gets to work again with the things he's done.
Yeah. And you're thinking, like, it's all like a big downfall, because after the Avengers, he was pretty much king of the nerds, and now.
Oh yeah, he did a great job with the Avengers. He managed to tie all those characters together. It did exactly what it needed to do. And then this movie and everything around it. Oof.
Yeah. And that's when obviously Marvel have gone very much down the lighter, not Marvel, DC have gone much down the lighter route, because Aquaman was a lot lighter, Shazam was a lot lighter, Wonder Woman 84 a lot lighter.
And even Birds of Prey, like it was fun.
Yeah. Really, the irony of Aquaman and Shazam, they're both made by people known for making horror films, and they end up making the lightest Marvel DC films.
Yeah. I mean, out of the one, I enjoyed Aquaman. I liked Shazam a lot. I loved Birds of Prey. It kind of rebooted the entire character of Harley Quinn the way she should have been in Suicide Squad. And the first Wonder Woman is kind of the perfect introductory, well, 2/3 of the perfect introductory superhero film.
Yes, I agree. Wonder Woman is excellent. I would say the No Man Land scene is probably one of the best superhero introduction scenes I've put to screen.
Yeah, and everything they did with the Amazons too, like they created actual characters out of these, tertiary characters that were so beloved after, a 20-minute appearance that people wanted them back in Justice League. Like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I would say Shazam's probably my favorite in the DCEU, because despite it being the film featuring gods and wizards, not gods, the physical embodiment of the seven deadly sins and wizards and everything, it's actually probably the most grounded film in the whole DCEU, because you've got that emotional connection with Billy Baxter's search for his family, and let's say they use a lot from it's very influenced by Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, because he had that he was having to learn the lesson of, with great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah, and the thing I love about Shazam is, it's not a hugely known superhero story, so they had to explain that to those of us like me who weren't familiar with it. But they managed to explain all the mythology, make it understandable, and make it relatable. And like you said about the MCU being relatable, Shazam was relatable. It felt not like you're watching gods playing with mortals. It felt like you could be that kid off the street who ends up, Shazam. Like, it was so well done, so fun. The performances were great. I loved everything about it.
Yeah. And as well, because as you say, relatability, he did act pretty much like how you would think a 14-year-old would if he suddenly got superpowers.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's, as I said, my favorite, because when I saw it, the Odeon did a free limitless screening for anyone with limitless cards. I mean, I never signed up for one of those faster in my life.
I actually watched it on a plane to South Africa, and it was perfect. It was the perfect thing to watch. I loved it.
Yeah. It was a one to get, but then beyond back to my DC being considered divisive, because Wonder Woman has had a divisive had a divisive reception. It was like reported that it's got the lowest score out of all the films on IMDb, and I think with that, obviously I can understand again some of the issues. Like, I think the big issue is with the reappearance of Steve Rogers. That's my, or basically see, they merged together. That's the problem with
Chris Pine.
Yeah, Chris Pine. Yeah, Chris Pine came back, but he essentially inhabited another man's body, and they showed that they got intimate. And you think, if it was a man like wished for his dead girlfriend to come back, and she took over another person's body, yeah, you can imagine that would have been a lot more criticized if that was ever put into film.
Oh yeah, like watching Wonder Woman 84, it was such a just disconnect from the first Wonder Woman, which was so well done and so well structured, and everyone loved it, universally beloved. And like 84 just felt tired. It felt like they were trying to shoehorn 17 different plots into the film. The villain never really had any sort of motivation that was explained to us. Cheetah was, I mean, I love Kristen Wiig, but what, like, Cheetah again, like, it felt like there were too many bad guys, too much going on. Why is Chris Pine back? Like, must we do this all again? Can't we just let her stand on her own and tell a story?
You know, I also remember like thinking like with the memes, like when that was created, like obviously announcing they're making a sequel, Wonder Woman 1984, goes, well, Wonder Woman, I turn my back on the world of men, except for that wacky adventure in the 80s.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it drove me nuts because they did such a good job, and Patty Jenkins such a good job with the first one that, the second one, I know there was problems and reshoots and issues and all of that.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's par for the course now with any big budget feature, it looks like. But I just wish in all that time they had between when it was supposed to come out and when they actually released it, even the CGI looked wonky. Like they didn't take time to fix that. Like, come on.
I know, like they clearly skimped on Chitara's appearance, and obviously like the scene like with Wonder Woman running, wasn't it, when chasing the lorries.
Yeah, it just did not look like a finished product that it should be.
Yeah. Let's just say that's the way superhero films are these days, and so DC is playing catch up because obviously they've got, because you're gonna with they're at another weird divergent point, because do they continue with this lighter route, or do they go back more to the Snyderverse?
I mean, I feel like it's pretty obvious they've cut ties with Snyder. I think their last couple films have been more commercially successful than they expected with the lighter touch to them. Shazam, I don't think they expected it to do as well as it did critically and with audiences. And Birds of Prey was fun and did, again, better critically than I think they expected it to do. I think they're probably going to embrace this more like irreverent, fun, colorful, maybe, future. And I mean, the big question I think hanging over the DCEU now is, do they continue with the Justice League? Are they going to be able to do more films? I know Ben Affleck said he's done, but can you get these guys back for more? Do you want to? How is the new Batman film going to fit into this? Like all these things.
Yeah, I certainly think, because obviously there's like there have been rumors whether Henry Cavill's they got rid of him, but I don't think he deserves at least one more film. Just he deserves this. He deserves this chance.
Yeah, and then the question is, do you recast him or do you kill Superman again? Like, how do you handle it?
Yeah, I know. I was thinking like they could argue, because that's the other issue with Batman v Superman. It's because they shoved in so many different storylines. They said, you got the death of Superman. You have basically the Dark Knight Returns.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just so many plot lines going. It's just I've just got looking up what the future films are they've got in mind. So obviously got next one will be the Suicide Squad, because that's the big coup. They got James Gunn to do it, because obviously that was at that point where Disney temporarily fired him from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
And the Flash, which I think that's because the way that sounds like they're going to be doing lots of Flash paradox, lots of alternative futures. They've got people. They've got, oh God, what's his name? Michael Caine. Can't remember his name now. Batman from the Tim Burton films.
Oh, Michael Keaton.
That's it, Michael Keaton. They've brought him back because they're doing like a Batman Beyond portion of that film, and then obviously got the sequels for Aquaman and Shazam as well, and a third Wonder Woman film.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like they're going all in on not bringing them back together to form the Justice League, which kind of bums me out, because as we'll get to in our next Snyder Cut podcast, you know, they set, the one thing I liked about it was that he set the groundwork for, you know, Adam to show up and the Martian Manhunter and Deathstroke and, you know, really cool characters from the DC universe that would, you know, enhance the Justice League and be, you know, good villains.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say though, with compared to Marvel, with so much connectivity between all these films, it is nice just to have a film that is standalone.
Yeah, I mean, my one thing, and when I review all these Marvel TV shows that are coming out, the one thing that always hits me as I watch them is, you know, there's an element that feels like homework. It feels like you have to watch this in, or you're not going to understand these 6 movies that are coming in the future.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the other thing with DC is because they also seem to be, well, they have pretty much said they are lurching towards a multiverse storylines themselves, or Elseworld storylines, because they Joker is an Elseworld story. It's pretty much a Martin Scorsese film with some superhero dressing.
Yeah, it's a Martin Scorsese cosplay.
Yeah. And the Batman, because obviously the way that production was, because originally it was meant to be the Ben Affleck's Batman, but then because obviously the whole messiness with Ben Affleck leaving, so it's now Robert Pattinson doing basically looking like Batman Begins again.
Yep, let's just do it all over again. Why not?
Yeah.
Just the hope is they don't show his parents getting killed. I think we're good.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I don't think they could really do it much better than it was done in Batman Begins.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just so tired of it.
Yeah. And I do think, because clearly the film they keep a comic book they keep lurching on is the Dark Knight Returns, the famous Frank Miller storyline. And you think, just make a Dark Knight Returns storyline, get it out your system.
Yeah, just do it.
Yeah, I'd be perfectly willing to do it if anyone from DC and Marvel and DC and Warner Brothers are listening. Not very likely. Yeah, but yeah, so
I would expect we'd get like what, a Green Lantern? That's DC, right?
Yeah, Green Lantern. Oh,
I
that's
feel
the
like
other.
they should come up with him.
Yeah, and because as well they got J.J. Abrams. He's coming to do a Superman film because with.
Oh God, must we?
Yes, he's because the rumors are they're going to redo him as it's going to be a black he's going to be a black character, and I'm hoping this is like an Elseworld story, because I figure if that's the case, that's fine. But you can imagine what the internet reaction will be if he said, "Yep, this is your new Superman."
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, you know, on the Marvel side, I'm intrigued to see what people seem to think once Sam becomes Captain America at the end of his TV show.
Yeah, but I think at least with that, he's not very much here's the new Steve Rogers. He is a different character, just taking up the identity.
There's a comic backstory for it, so there's a reason.
Yeah, and also to say with because have you ever read J.J. Abrams' screenplay for Superman?
I think I've read some of it.
But yeah, so basically in that story, he's basically trying to do Star Wars with Superman. Krypton's never destroyed. He's sent to Earth to fulfill a prophecy to liberate Krypton from his evil uncle, and the evil uncle sends his son. So basically, pretty much, though it's not called General Zod, he's essentially a General Zod-like character, and it's an entertaining read. I will admit that. But that film, if that film was ever made, which it was very close to being made, the fan reaction would have been furious.
Yeah, I bet. That does not sound great.
Yes, it's sort of like the big stinger at the end was Lex Luthor was actually a Kryptonian, so that was the big twist. And it ends with Superman flying off to Krypton to and it was meant to be the first film in a trilogy.
Oh God, no.
So yeah, I would say definitely read the screenplay. I mean, not just Eugene, everyone listening, read the screenplay. It's quite an interesting read, but yeah, that's sort of like I think most people would be glad it was never actually made.
I agree.
But yeah, so I think we'll call it. We'll have a pause here. So we'll, for our listeners, we'll come back and we'll be reviewing Zack Snyder's Justice League. So stay tuned.